Hello, everybody. Hi there. If you are watching me and you can hear me and you can see me, please can you let me know on the comments? That way I know that I am good to start. So, big call out to anyone who can see or hear me. I'm also going to do a quick little message and see. All right. Apologies that I was a few moments late. I was actually checking something specifically for this live. It was about IBs and results embargoes. I'll get into it in a moment. But I am here about 5 minutes into the session. So as I said, do just drop me a little message and let me know, am I live? Can you hear me? And I'll start in a few moments. All right. There we are. So I think people can see, people can hear. I'm hoping that they can. There we are. I can see that there's a couple of people, I think, who are watching, which would be good. But I'm going to let everybody... Oh, perfect. Somebody has given the video a like. So I think I know I'm good to start. All right. So welcome. And the session that we're going to be looking at today is all about university applications and their timelines, because it gets quite kind of confusing. There's lots of different moving steps when it comes to applying to university. And also this is quite relevant to me in that over the last 2 weeks, I've received a whole load of people who've been saying our personal statements need to be in, and they need to be in the next 2 weeks. Can you help? So I thought it'd be useful to do a session for you guys all about really when is the best place to start and how do we start when we're looking at universities. So a little bit about what I do. My name is Jemma Smith. I am an education expert. I run 2 companies. The first is called the Education Hotel. It's a tuition agency. The second is called Top School and Uni. And we pretty much do what we say on the tin. We help people with top schools and universities. I myself am a graduate from Oxford. I went back to do my PGCE, my teaching qualification. Somewhat boringly went to the same college. I really liked my college. I am a qualified secondary school teacher, and I have worked with companies offering support with their students in terms of getting into top universities. So typically over summer, I will run these types of sessions. I'm just going to move so that people can see me a little bit clearer. There we are. I run these sessions looking at how you can improve personal statements, what you can do in order to make your application really competitively. I used to volunteer when I was at Oxford with Unique, who is the charity kind of extension arm, encouraging people to apply to universities and to apply to Oxford is Unique's kind of own specific. There's different ones for different places, but luckily as part of kind of Unique's program, I did some summer schools with them. I also supported some tutors through applications and looked at people's personal statements and did it that way. So enough about that. What do we do in terms of application timelines? And I'm going to start all the way back at 13 years old. And the reason I'm going to do that is not because I think you should be thinking about Oxbridge at 13. It's that I know some of you are thinking about that. So I know that there are people in the group whose children have just started really at secondary, but who are thinking, do we need to get moving? What do we need to do when we're thinking about UK universities? Ultimately, 13, 14, pre-GCSEs, the biggest thing to focus on is what interests you. So what is it that interests your child and that they can do to feed that interest? So I always use the example of dinosaurs. If you're really interested in dinosaurs, the best thing to do is to go visit the Natural History Museum. is to learn as much as you can, is to talk to maybe a paleontologist to be able to find out more about dinosaurs. So really go into that interest. If you are thinking, maybe my child might want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, and I'd really like them to kind of get into that mindset, then encourage their interests, whatever that interest might be. Maybe that interest is Minecraft. Get to talk to somebody who designs computers and computer games. Get them to develop a Minecraft project. Do whatever you can to feed that interest. This is the slides that I'm using this evening are taken from a previous summer school. So they also have the word mentoring because that's something that Top School and Uni does, but it doesn't have to be formal. Mentoring can just mean getting an older student to talk to your child or an older adult who they respect and who maybe is in a field that they are interested in. So, as I said, if they're interested in gaming, if they're interested in that kind of area, finding somebody who actually works in it to give them a chat, to talk to them about what they wish they'd done, and really to guide them. As I said, a mentor doesn't have to be an adult. It can be a child who's slightly older. We provide university mentors when we do it. So they're not our full-time tutors. They're doing the degree as they go through. But a mentor is someone who's a little bit outside of the family who can give advice. And that mentoring can be really useful because it can feed an interest. They can chat about books that they're interested in. They can talk about projects that they're interested in. And it's a way for them to see really where that interest could go. But as a parent, be aware that interest will change, most probably. And that's a great thing because what we're doing is developing an interest. Doesn't matter what it is. When we're looking at 15 and 16, and I apologize if you've seen this bit before. Occasionally I do this for other groups, but it's quite useful. If we're looking at ages 15 and 16, ultimately, if we're looking at top universities in the UK, your grades are a priority. So GCSEs, they're coming up. IGCSEs, they're coming up. Ultimately, that's where you're focusing. Start to think about something called supracurriculars or supercurriculars, sometimes called extracurriculars, in year 11. Those are things that are related to the subject you're interested in. So if your child's doing GCSEs at the moment, focus on that and maybe ask them what they're interested in. If they say something like biochemistry, that's what I did my degree in, then start to maybe supplement it with a book or a discussion or just little things like picking out a newspaper. If they've got something at school that they can do, like a science club, or maybe there's a reading club about science. Some people have that at schools, then obviously get them involved in that. But if you want to do it at home, pick out some articles. Again, typically when we mentor students, that's what we will look at. We'll pick something out, we'll discuss it with them, we'll see what they think about it, and ultimately we might choose to do a project around it. We might choose that we're actually going to look at loads of different articles and loads of different things to do with their interests. Then kind of summer of 16, look at things like maybe, and this is, again, I'd say it's early, but the reason that I kind of push starting early is because sometimes these decisions take a long time. So age 16, after GCSEs, go and visit a university or two, especially if you or your immediate family haven't been. So your child is going to be the first in the family. I come on and do these talks for the Oxbridge University journey because I never went to, my parents never went to university. I was the first in my family, and I had never been to a university before I started looking. They were completely foreign to me. I had no idea what it was about. So do go, especially if you are, if it's the first time that you're going to be putting somebody through a university, do go and visit after GCSEs. It provides a little bit of motivation. It focuses a little bit about what you might want to do. And ultimately it gets the idea of university floating around, possibly considering. And I'm in kind of being really truthful, I didn't consider university until I entered year 12. until I got my GCSE results. So for me, it just wasn't something that I ever thought about. And then I did well in my GCSEs, and suddenly it was something that I started thinking about. And I went and did some summer courses. I didn't do a whole big summer course. I did a couple of summer days that were put on by something like the Sutton Trust. They're a charity who runs widening participation days. So I went on one to Cambridge for natural sciences, and I thought it was really interesting. And I was a bit nervous about going because I hadn't been anywhere like that before. But what it did do is it made me start to think about university a little bit more seriously. So if you've got a child age 16 who's thinking about university but not really knowing what kind of course or where they might want to apply, do consider those types of things. And there are a couple of charities like the Sutton Trust who will put these days on, put these experiences on that are specific for students who often don't have much experience with university. Likewise, there are paid for summer courses. There are lots of different versions out there, but there's ultimately go and take a look is what I'd say. The other thing to do in the summer of done GCSEs and moving into sixth form is to do a lot of reading projects, maybe some work experience, maybe some speaking to people who might be doing something that you're interested in, going to online additional lectures. Anyone who's worked with me knows that we give out a kind of additional lecture and reading lists. And again, it's about saying, okay, I'm interested in this thing. I'm going to do some more around it. And again, I've put down mentoring, because really talking to people who go to the university or study the subject that you want to do, now is a perfect time to ask them all the questions you've got. Because when we start getting into age 17, lower sixth, we start narrowing down on choices. We start to think about, actually, lower sixth is really the time that you want to be thinking about making a university application. And yes, you're not going to make it until you're in upper sixth, but there is a reason why I would say to think about it really quite early. And I think it's on the next slide. It's down here. So why is it worth thinking about universities early? If you consider when you're in upper sixth or year 13, if you are applying to Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, vet med, you have what's called an early application deadline. And that's the 15th of October. And some schools, as some students who I've spoken to recently will know, have their internal deadlines. And that might be 2 weeks earlier. So the school might need your personal statement by the 30th of September. They might need all your choices. They might need everything by then. You start year 13, upper sixth, maybe the 1st of September. So that doesn't give you very much time to write a personal statement. If you were looking for work experience and you were looking to read books, then that needed to be done in the summer before. So now we're back to summer of the year that you're applying. And June is the end of year 12. And if you were looking to do a lot of essay competitions, or you're looking to do some really competitive work experience, you're probably looking at January. So we're looking at least January through to October, when you're needing to make that application. 15th of October, you probably want to be thinking about writing that first draft of a personal statement, making those choices around universities and courses, not set in stone, but start thinking about them a lot earlier. Because if you start to think about them after summer, you can't do the work experience, you can't do the reading, you can't do any essay competitions, and you're unlikely to be able to speak with people who have been through that experience. And if you are applying for a highly competitive course, so a course maybe that has additional exams, then 15th of October might actually be, might be, you might have already had to do some exams, so like BMAT, UCAS, or they might be done on the 15th of October. It puts a very, very short amount of time. So that's why I'd always say, yes, I know that you don't need to make the application until the 15th of October if you're going early deadline. And yes, I know that that is in year 13, but you're not going to get everything you want done to make it the best application if you start thinking about it in summer. And as someone said here, a few schools want it a month earlier than the 15th of October. You're giving yourself very little time. So age 17 is really when I'd say you want to start looking lower sixth in thinking about where you might want to go, what you might want to do to be able to get there. So if you are looking for a really, really highly competitive course, you're looking at somewhere like Imperial, you're looking at somewhere like Oxford, Cambridge, like Durham, one of the kind of top ranking schools, universities, then you really want to be thinking about trying to get the best possible personal statement out of it. You always should be trying to present your best, but you're wanting to really think about it at that point because it's quite an early start that you want to have. And that allows then your summer between lower sixth, upper sixth, year 12, year 13, to be about gap filling, to be more about preparing for the entrance exams, to be thinking forward about what you might want to do. And that might be the point where you go, actually, I'd like to apply for a deferred entrance. Deferred entrance is when you apply to the university knowing that you're going to take a gap year out. And again, that might be a choice that you make in the middle between years 12 and year 13, but you may already have, because of the work that you've been doing in year 12, a really great statement to be able to put forward. So that is up until UCAS. And what I wanted to spend the rest of today talking about was about the timelines, as I said, application timelines in UCAS. A brief rundown of UCAS is it is the online portal where the majority of people will put their applications. There are some exceptions. It tends to sit with international students. It's rare. So for the majority of people, UCAS is where we are. It's almost 99% really. So UCAS is an online system. It takes a little bit of time to get used to. And it takes a code. And that code corresponds to the university, the course, and the really specific nature of the course. So if you and your young person are looking at universities, you might notice that there is, for example, biology with a year abroad, biology with a year in industry. Those are 3 separate courses and 3 separate codes. So they count as 3 options on your UCAS form. Even though they're at one university, even though they're studying the same thing, they come across as different codes. So the codes are really what we put into UCAS. And the codes are made fairly clear within each university prospectus. And when you put them into UCAS, the course pops up. So it's quite obvious if you're meant to be applying for physics and your code says fashion design, it's the wrong one. You can get rid of it. You can load up to 5 courses onto UCAS. They don't have to be the same course. They can be different, and UCAS isn't going to put anything to stop you there. You only can put down 4 medicine courses. You have to put a 5th in a different topic, different subject. And it is the place that UCAS is the place where all of the stuff that is used for your university application goes. So you put in a personal statement there. It is not formatted. So it doesn't matter if you put formatting and even paragraph breaks in there. It doesn't go through to UCAS. They just take it in standard form. And school reference goes there as well. And the grades that you got at GCSE go there. And anything that is predicted goes there. So ultimately, everything about your academic history takes into your school, takes into your school references. It all gets put in UCAS. Now, as I said, that's a kind of broad brush approach to what UCAS is, because today's session is all about timelines, but you need to know UCAS because that's where everything is going to happen. If you are applying to Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, vet med, dentistry, then you will need to reach early deadlines. And most of those early deadlines are the 15th of October. Not all of them, but some again, small differences. For example, Cambridge international students have, again, a different deadline for certain courses, but it's a real exception. As we've mentioned before, the school might have its own internal deadline. So you need to be aware if you're aiming for those early deadlines. If you're not, then your deadline is in January. So a bit of a big difference. You're looking at 15th of October versus January. Oh, somebody has asked, is the school reference visible to applicants? No. However, there should be a conversation between schools and applicants about what is expected on that reference. They are not supposed to show applicants the entire reference. Applicants are not supposed to have any say in that can't go in my reference, that can go in my reference. But what typically schools will do is ask an applicant to write down everything that they think is important, and typically will also ask subjects, teachers to pool into one referee. So the idea being is that your student will then be able to get the most detailed reference that they can. If they are missing that, or if their school's not used to it, then that's again why we'd say start earlier rather than later, because that's all about letting your school know. And UCAS put on a lot of training for university advisors. So they do a whole load of training that you can go to and schools can go to as well. And it explains a little bit more about the reference process. But the school reference should be not fully visible to applicants, but applicants should have a vague idea about what's going on it. That is the way that I'd describe it. That doesn't mean that some schools haven't been known in the past to show their applicants exactly their reference. What that means is that schools are not allowed, once they've submitted their reference, the applicant can't change it. They can't do anything to it. So that hopefully deals with that point. We've gone through why it's useful starting about universities early. And then we've got all of this, what happens after applying. So if we talk about kind of the early deadline, we're looking at October, 15th of October. And we're thinking, well, maybe you've put it in the 15th of October. And it's worth saying that you don't have to put all 5 of your applications down on that 15th of October. You can actually put down a restricted number. There's kind of 2 options that you can have within UCAS. You can, most people will choose 5 possible applications. You could choose a smaller number. You pay a slightly smaller fee as well. But very few people would do that. I'd rarely advise somebody to do that. But what I might consider, and again, it's very individual specific, but there are 5 spaces. If you're making an early application and say you know that you would like to apply to Oxford, you'd like to apply to Imperial, you're not sure if you'd like to apply to Bath or Sheffield or St Andrews, but you know that maybe in October half term you might go visit them. That would be where I'd put down 3 and maybe put the others in later. It can be done anytime from the 15th of October. It is rarer to do it. As I said, I would do it dependent on a student and dependent on their whole application. But it is just worth pointing out because it is something that, again, rarely would we advise it, but it is something that does exist. So you would typically put down your 5, you might put down less and then add in, but most people would put down their 5. And then once it's in, it's in. And you sit there and you wait. And that's when the universities have their chance to respond. So as I said, you can add choices if you didn't apply to all 5 until the 30th of June, which is a long time, as long as you have not accepted and you can't add any early deadline choices. So if you didn't make an application on the 15th of October, but you would like to apply to Cambridge, unfortunately, that's too late. If you made an application on the 15th of October, if you didn't make an application on the 15th of October, you made one in January and you only made 4, you would like to add an extra 1, that can be done up until the 30th of June. If you were to put an application in after the 30th of June, it goes directly into something called clearing, which I'll talk about in a little bit. 26th of January 2022 is our general UCAS application deadline. So that's the one that is not early. So everybody should have it in by the 26th of Jan. Again, that means that the universities get it the moment you put it in. So if you are making an application and you've got those 2 deadlines, you've got the early deadline and you've got the 26th of January, you can put it in any time in front of the 26th of January. You can put it in 25th of December if you really want it. So if you've got it all ready to go, you might as well put it in, because universities get it straight away. Don't do it without school. Make sure the school know, because they have their bit to fill it out as well. But universities will get it once everyone has filled in all of their pieces. So once the school's filled in theirs, once you've filled in yours, it will go off to those universities. Now, obviously, universities receive applications throughout. And some people will say, well, it's better to get your university application in front of other people, especially with some of those more competitive universities. And the kind of advice that I would always give is, if it's ready to go, there's no reason for you to hold on to it, then let it go, because it means that they get it a bit sooner. It means that you get rid of it a bit sooner, and it's no longer something you can go back to and change. It is generally a more positive thing to do. So if you've got it, 1st of January, 2nd of January, and school have okayed it and they've written their reference, then send it off, because they'll get it a little bit earlier. They'll be able to process it a little bit earlier. There is this thing called extra. UCAS gets kind of slightly bigger each year, and extra is one of the little extra parts. So extra is available between the 25th of February and the 4th of July. So if you used all 5 of your applications on your original application, and everywhere either didn't give you an offer, or you've declined everywhere, you then have the option for one more choice. So that's the extra choice. And that is when you put it in. So from the 25th of February to the 4th of July. But you have to have not been holding an offer, which means that you have to have declined anything you've got, or no one accepted you. So that's why we rarely hear about extra, because there's not that many people who put in 5 courses and who didn't get accepted from any of them and declined anything that they were accepted to in order to free up that one choice. So extra is a little bit unusual. Then you've got these ideas of you have to wait for the university. So if we're talking about timelines, we've got 15th of October early. We've got 26th of January 2022. Please note that if you're watching this on replay and it is not 2022 that you're aiming for, they may have changed that deadline, because they do change it and tweak it each year. Then you've got extra opening, and then you've got decisions. Now, if you had applied back in the 15th of October, you might have received all of your decisions by the 1st of January. If you applied on the 26th of January, You might receive all of your decisions by the 1st of February. Could be that quick. Or it could carry on. So ultimately, universities have a fairly long time to get back to you. And typically the date that people will talk about is the 19th of May. The 19th of May is the time that you should hear back from all of your universities, provided you applied by the 26th of January deadline. So that means even if you applied for the 15th of the 15th of October early deadline, you still made it before the 26th of January, which means the last time that university should be getting back to you would be the 19th of May. As I said, sometimes a nervous wait. You might have 4 universities that have gone back to you, and you're waiting on that last one. And that last one might be going and going and going, and it might not be something that you're either interested in, or it might be the one you're interested in. You don't have to wait for them to come back. So if it's not the one you're interested in, you've got the offers from the ones that you were interested in, then you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for it to come back. But a lot of people do like to wait. So somebody has asked, do we hear back via UCAS or through the individual universities? UCAS has a portal. It is called Track. And once you submit, you get a login for UCAS Track. UCAS Track is the thing that is updated. That is the first place I would go, because although certain universities will let you know, UCAS Track will be the one that updates, that is the formal offers. So UCAS Track will always update with usually what the university has said, so acceptance or decline, and if they have made an offer, a conditional offer, it will say it within UCAS Track. So UCAS is the place that you should always be going back to, even if a university has told you or sent you a letter to say that they would like to accept you. It will still always be updated on UCAS Track. So UCAS is kind of the place that I would always send somebody back to, because that is the best option. So by the time you get to the 19th of May, you might have been waiting for a long while, and you should have heard back from all of your 5 universities, provided you haven't been using extra. So extra's got a slightly different deadline. So if you've heard back from everybody on the 19th of May, and I said you may hear from them much earlier, you may hear from the ones that you are interested in much earlier. For example, if you get 3 offers and you don't care about the others, the others were there just to fill in the spaces, or because you think you might not get those 3 offers, and you're thinking those 3 offers are the ones I want, you don't need to wait for the other 2. But you might want to, and that's fine. You can also wait. So if you receive your last decision on or before the 19th of May, you then have to reply, and again, this is done by UCAS, by the 9th of June. And the reply is choosing a firm and an insurance. So you apply to 5. 5 get back to you. You choose 2. Your firm should be the one that you really want to go to. And your insurance should be the one you're happy to go to if you weren't going to get the grades to go to your firm. There is no point putting a firm and an insurance choice that have the same grades, because what you're saying is, if I don't get that grade, I'm not going anywhere. Now, that is okay as long as you are happy to take that year out. But it's almost a waste of an insurance place. There is one reason that you would do it. And it's, in my opinion, it's a weaker reason. But you might have 2 universities that have accepted. And those universities might be the only 2 that have accepted, and they might have the same grades. Well, then you'd put one as a firm and one as an insurance. You put the firm as the one you'd really like to go to, and the insurance as the one you're not so certain on. But typically, you would have chosen 5 universities so that some of them are what are called reach, which means that you might have to push a little bit to get those grades, and some of them are your fallback or your insurance, and those are the ones that you should get in terms of your results. So if you're choosing 2 universities, which are your firm and your insurance, which you do on UCAS track, then you mark the first one as firm, you mark the one that you want to go to as firm, which should be the higher grade. Again, on results day, what you are doing or what is happening in UCAS is they get your results, they send your results, provided that you have this conditional offer. I'll talk about conditional in a moment. They send your results off to the universities. The universities go, yes, I'll accept them, or no, I won't. And if you've achieved the grades that the university has said is the condition of your offer, then you're in. So a university will typically say you have a conditional offer. So on the condition of getting a certain grade in your A-levels. So if you've met that, perfect. If you haven't quite met their condition, so their conditional offer, they might be flexible, but it's up to the university. So that's where people will typically choose a firm that's a bit higher and an insurance that's a little bit lower. So a firm choice, it should be the grades that you would hope to get and the ones that you would hope to go to. And you know that if you don't quite get those grades, maybe they're flexible, maybe they're not, but you've got the insurance choice. If you have gone through the process, then you've gone through extra, and extra has given you that one extra shot, then the universities they don't have to get back to you until the 14th of July. It's a very late date. So that is when you've received your last decision, and your reply is the 21st of July. So that is a little bit shorter, but again, it's because you've been using extra. Okay. So we have got 15th of October early deadline. We've got 26th of January standard deadline. We've got extra opens out just in case if all 5 of your choices have either declined or you have declined them, then you get that one more shot. Then you've got 19th of May if you didn't use extra. Then you've got the 14th of July if you did use extra. And then you've got the dates that you've got to get back about firm and insurance. Now, somebody's pointed out to me in the chat, what about interviews? And also, what about exam dates? These are university specific. So whilst this information is about UCAS in general and its timelines, you also might have university specific deadlines. So, for example, if you are applying to Oxford or Cambridge, there will be interviews, and those interviews typically happen in December time, January time. And for that means that you apply on the 15th, but you've got those interviews. Those interviews are another part of your application. So interviews are set by an individual university, and those individual universities will set them, and certain subjects also for certain universities will interview and others won't. So Imperial's known for that. Imperial will interview some of their students. They won't interview all of their students, dependent on the courses. Again, medicine, pretty much everywhere interviews, but something like biomed won't. So it's very university specific. Same thing for, you've got different exams, entrance exams that you might need to take. So for example, if you're applying to history at Oxford, you need to take the HAT test. Again, it's specific to a university. So I haven't put it down on this slide purely because there's loads of different options dependent on the university. But ultimately, yes, some universities do interviews, some universities do tests, and those will be communicated by the individual universities, or you are expected really to know when they are. And that you can find from the individual university's page, because the individual university is the one that sets it. So if you're looking at BMAT, if you're looking at HAT, if you're looking at TSA, all of those should be written on the course pages for the universities that you're applying for. So again, if we go back to our kind of longer timeline, we're expecting that if you didn't go for extra, you would have gotten back and chosen your firm and your insurance choice by the 9th of June. Again, it's quite late. A lot of people do it beforehand. So lots of people will get the offers that they want, they will make a decision, and they will choose their firm and their insurance all the way back in something like January. But they've got until June to do so. Actually, they've got until July if they use extra. But if you're not using extra, you've got until the 9th of June. Then you find out your results. And for IBs, you actually find them slightly earlier this year, especially. And typically clearing opens on the day that IB results come out. However, it is worth really emphasizing clearing and adjustment dates have not been confirmed yet for this year. So typically you find out your results and clearing will open on the IB results date, and then A-levels will find out afterwards. After you get your results are directly sent to the university via UCAS. There is 5 days for you to decide, for your student to decide whether you want to accept or decline that offer, because it has gone from becoming conditional on a certain grade to unconditional, which means they'll take you now because either you've met their requirement in terms of grade or you didn't quite achieve it, but they have decided that you've done enough to be able to go. And that is, again, specific to the university. And certain universities will offer different grades to different students. It is known. You might not have the same grade requirements as somebody else. It is down to the individual. It's the individual conditional offer. So your conditions might be different to someone else's conditions. But you get your results, and at some point there is something called clearing and adjustment. This was the question I was looking at before I came online. Does this mean that some students have an advantage if they get their results earlier? The answer is, with the exception of IBs, no. Although IBs, probably. Each year there is something called an embargo, and each year it causes a bit of confusion between students and parents. It's essentially the point where track freezes and nothing can be done on track. The universities cannot discuss any applications with you or with an advisor, and your school advisor's portal will also freeze. It's called an embargo period. And that is because Scottish students get their results earlier, and a couple of other joint qualifications, BTECs, etc., get theirs maybe slightly earlier. And what it's to do is it's so that everybody who is taking a specific exam, like essentially an A-level equivalent, with the exception of IBs, will get their results on the same day, and therefore their university results on the same day. Because otherwise what happens is kind of everything happens at a bit of an odd time. So it means that UCAS freezes. UCAS freezes, so you don't know whether you have been updated to have got in or not got in if you are taking a Scottish qualification, and you have to wait to the same time as people who are maybe taking A-levels to be able to find out. It's a really specific point, only really relevant if you're not doing A-levels, which most of you probably will be. Okay, then there is something called clearing/clearing plus and adjustment. So this is once we are past results. Results are usually the day that you make your conditional offer unconditional and you accept, and you will go to either your firm or your insurance choice. So that should all be good. but you might not have got the grades for your firm or your insurance. So maybe your firm needed an A star AA, your insurance needed AAB, you got BBB. Neither of them will be willing to take you. And this is fictional, I've made this up. But if neither of them are willing to take you, you would go into clearing. Clearing is what happens if you applied after the 30th of June, or you didn't receive any offers, or you didn't meet the conditions. So I'm using the third version, that you didn't meet the conditions. At that point, you will get a list again via UCAS, because it all happens on UCAS portal, of all of the possible courses that you could apply to. And they've got this thing called Clearing Plus, whereas basically UCAS takes your grades and your previous applications and finds you things that you might want to apply for. So kind of like a little AI help. Adjustment is the opposite. You did much better than expected, and you might want to upgrade. So if you had taken your firm as BBB, but actually you came out with A star, A star, A star, you might be thinking, well, maybe I don't want to go to the BBB anymore. Maybe I want to see what's out there. That's when adjustment comes up too. Okay, hopefully this has been useful. It's a slightly confusing process. However, what I will do is at some point I'll also draw this out as a timeline. And that will mean that we can support more of you through any timeline related queries. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it a few moments and see if any of you have any questions. Do feel free to write them down. I should be able to see them. Alternatively, if you're watching on catch up, do just write it down and let me know. If you tag my name in the comments, I typically will see it. As I said, hopefully you have found it useful. I appreciate there's a lot of dates, and most of the dates are optional. So something like extra often isn't used. Something like clearing often isn't used. So typically people would just see kind of the standard or early application date, the time that they have to get back to a university, and then they'll get the results. But because of those extra additional options, that's why I've put them in, really. Okay. All right. As I said, I'll hang around for another couple of minutes in case anybody has any questions. If you are looking for advice, put a question down on the group, because ultimately that's what we're here for. So the Oxbridge University Journey will always try and answer your questions. What I've done is I've also popped down the website that I run, which is Top School and Uni. But really, in the first instance, I would always say get hold of us on Top School and Uni, on the Oxbridge University Journey, because there's lots of experts on there, so then lots of people can help. All right, I think we're done, and I don't really want to keep anybody any longer than we need to. Unfortunately, I've got to head off because I've got to go to another student, but do type any questions you've got into the comments box, and I will be back, and I'm always around, so I can always try and answer them. As I said, interview questions and assessments, so entrance tests, they are specific to universities. This stuff was more about what are the deadlines in terms of UCAS, and a little bit more about what needs to happen when. But obviously, if you do have those questions about interviews or about entrance exams, pop them on the group, and we will try and answer them for you. All right, then. Thank you very much. I have to say thank you to Saba, who runs the Oxbridge University Journey. Always lets me come on, and always lets me blabber on. I like to come on here because, as I said at the start, I am the first in my family to have gone to university. I didn't really know a lot of this when I started, and it would have helped maybe if I did. So I like to try and come on and support others. if there are any date updates, again, as I said, this was recorded on the 30th of September 2021. So if there are any date updates beyond this point, then I'm sorry, I haven't put them up. But this is the information that I've got at this time. All right, then. Thank you, and bye-bye.